I'm very excited to welcome on Mike, our Chief Technology and Product Officer, to talk about technology data in 2024. Mike, welcome to the pod.
Hi, everybody.
So I think the through line of everything we've talked about so far is how important data is to growth marketing writ large. We talked about that from sort of the highest level to the lowest level, how important it is for creative optimization, how important it is for pulling the levers, and how building the telemetry around it and understanding how the systems and piping work really are what makes good marketers differentiated from bad growth marketers. And it's more than just data, it's the engineering, it's the technology, it's all of the above. But that is, I think, something that we at Upptic have really invested in deeply, and we're very excited to talk about that with Ward and Mike.
Yeah, Mike, thank you so much for taking time out of you and your tiny but powerful team's business schedule to dig into the trends of last year. It's been a super busy year, and shout out to Mike and his team. Like, they've done some super badass work on our product side here at Upptic. We're super excited about a bunch of new stuff we're going to be announcing to the world more in the next few weeks. Yeah, how has this year been high level for you, Mike? Like, but when you think about like kind of the themes that permeated your year for like growth technology, growth data, what are kind of like the meta themes that you and your team were thinking about the most this year?
Well, I mean, I think it's a great question. I think you guys summed it up pretty well. Pretty busy on lots of fronts, right? So data and integrations and new ways of thinking about the world keep evolving. At the same time, you have this infrastructure that you built out with all these integrations that keep moving and keeps growing, and data volume keeps growing, and then you enhance with use cases. And at some point in time, you've got to balance updating those and keeping them running fast and performant, and still innovating and pushing better usability and approachability forward while building out new models and updates to all those things. So it's been a wild year. I mean, everything from visualization enhancements, performance enhancements on our side, new integrations, cleaning up our pipelines to drive all of that fun stuff to you guys and our clients in the platform. It's a lot. You mentioned we do it in a pretty efficient way for a very, very small team, but it's an undertaking. I think it only gets worse, right? It's only getting worse in the industry. So like, what I mean by that is like, it's hard to even talk to some of our clients, or, prior to working with them, to realize how limited their actual scope of data and ability to slice and try to make decisions on that data is. It's remarkable, really.
Yeah. One thing we talked about when we were chatting with Kevin from our growth team is there's this kind of like widening chasm. Like, two things are happening at the same time, which is the things that we can do with technology and growth theoretically are getting more and more powerful, but they're also getting more complicated. And the gap between what can be done and what teams are actually doing to execute is getting increasingly wider. And like, we use the example of scan and tracking prompts for iOS growth marketing, in that Apple has been providing this increasingly robust but technical infrastructure to use to honor the privacy goals while doing user acquisition, but it's designed by engineers for a customer base of marketer that do not have the technical understanding in most cases. And that what we get as an outcome there is 9 out of 10 teams and founders that I talk to just aren't doing anything with it because the complexity has gotten so high. And it's similar with AI. It's like there's so many things that AI can enable, but without the proper connective tissue or strategy, like a lot of teams are just, they're doing parlor tricks with AI, but nothing practical yet. So
it's a tale as old as time in technology, right? Like, from the get-go, from the invention of the wheel to now, I think there's nowadays, like, you talk to technologists, they're probably very familiar with what's called the hype curve, right? So at the very beginning, there's all these hopes and dreams, and this new thing is going to solve world hunger, and there's going to be this one button to click, and it's amazing. And that goes on for a while, and that's critical, right? Because it gets us innovation, and gets everyone excited, and the industry excited, so people flood money in it, and all these people go spend time to learn it and develop it. But then what happens is we actually start to learn where it is, like how do we actually use it? Not the technology itself, but how can we apply it? And that's when we fall into this trough of disillusionment where we go, oh, okay, we're not there yet. We don't know what we thought we knew. And then, we start to dig ourselves out of that. And that the hype curve, or that kind of life cycle, it's a different time span for everything. And I think AI is still very, very much, not even reached the top of the hype cycle yet. So it does a lot of things really, really well. I think it's going to do amazing things and help really do deep processing in lots of areas in a wide range of industries. I think it's going to take us a while before we dial in and figure out where the switches and dials are and what's the right input parameter, where it's good and where it's not. And so right now, I think there's cases that we see where people are doing some really cool parlor tricks. They're doing some really cool, real meaningful, like amazing things with it, like which I think are like it's absolutely incredible. And then I think we also have a problem where people are using it in areas where it's just not quite ready yet, and we're trying to force fit it in on hopes and dreams. Yeah, AI is interesting. It's not ready for common prime time for most use cases yet. It's great for other things, for lots of things, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, one thing we talk about with our creative team a lot is like there's a lot of things you can do with AI, but there's like that uncanny valley where like from top of funnel marketing perspective, they can be like unsettling, like some of these like AI driven ads. Not that that will be the case forever, but they're kind of things that we experiment with. Just because you can do something in a completely AI workflow doesn't necessarily mean that you'll get the most optimal outcome from that in the current state of a lot of these. Like we're excited about what's evolving, about what is kind of proof of concept, but there's a gap between that and AI being fully optimal solutions for some of these things.
And I think we're going to get to the point, especially around like some of the video and audio stuff where AI goes too far. We let it go too far. We try to take it too far. Like if you look at some of the technology around deep cloning and deep fakes and things like that, I think we're going to continue to push that as an industry, and then it's going to go just a little too far, and then we're going to have a real societal reaction to it, right? And we're going to go through evolutions on that at different points in times around some of the AI stuff. Right?
Yeah, and I mean, I think the thing that Ava was talking about is just how, AI is super useful as a point solution for a piece of the creative process, but not necessarily for doing the whole thing, and that, it's a superpower for the people who know how to use it, but it's definitely not a replacement for human workload yet.
I feel that way around lots of technology, right? Like, for as a lifelong technologist and product guy on both sides, right? And one of the ways that we get so much done with our small team is by being pragmatic where we can around technology and not trying to be like hard-nosed adoption of these, latest and greatest standards in every place where we don't need them, or a single platform, right? So it really is finding the best tool for the job at the time, and then understanding how to build nice contained interfaces that allow us to kind of do like, we don't need a Rolls Royce over here. It's just a data pipeline. We're going to take this and then we're going to normalize it at this point, right? We're going to separate it off and use this component where it has, great alignment to the outcome we want, and then tie it into some of the more legacy technologies or other areas where we had, right? And I think that's really where AI is right now, not just in manual workflow or human workflows, but I think also in a lot of, programmatic workflows. It's a good point in time solution. It's great for editing. It's great for text editing. It's some of the mild generative AIs I think are cool. Like, fill in this background, or, give me a starting script that I can look at for a creative. I think those are all great, but, it still needs some human oversight in most cases for sure.
Yeah, I think what Mark Zuckerberg once said, move fast to break things, and then it moved to move fast but with good infrastructure. I think working with Mike been a lesson on the good infrastructure part. And I think that sort of goes to the next thing I want to talk about, which is how we think about what our technology is and how we think about how we build our technology philosophy. I'm going to put some words into your mouth, Mike, but feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. But I think what we've done really, really well is understand how to build a really, really powerful foundation that is super robust and flexible to a lot of different situations. And so there are a number of data sets that are really important to us as growth marketers. We can pull them all in. We can do that very well. Your team has done an amazing job building a bunch of integrations that allow us to do that, and then standardize them and give you a flexible toolkit that then allows any game company, no matter what, to come in and be able to use these tools to grow their game. And so can you talk a little bit about how you think about Upptic's philosophy around technology and how we build?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it sounds, I'm not trying to minimize it, but it's a kind of standard technology approach, right? Which is abstracted interfaces for the most part, and, building and maintaining these kind of nice interfaces that you can progressively build Legos and you can keep building things off of, right? So that's basically what we've done. One of the things that someone gave me feedback on when I very first started Upptic is talking about the vision of what I wanted to build from a platform standpoint was the fact that all the channels are different. Like you just take the ad channels, they're all different. But at the end of the day, once they've all come through, we developed out a very hyper normalized process or schema where we treat them the same, and then we're able to move very quickly across all those guys. So one of the heavy work, a lot of the heavy lifting is learning to speak an ad network's language, its API, and then we build that translator into Upptic speak. And then from that point on, all our models work. So if we add a new integration or a new MMP into the platform, or even custom feeds from people's warehouse, once they're in the pipeline everything is consistent. Our modeling works, our forecasting works, the eventing system works, notifications work, privacy models work. It's because of that interface, and that goes all the way through our, the UI. And so with that really just comes stepping back and saying, look, you've got to model those things out up front, build out the right kind of schemas, and then you have to do a lot of anticipation about what you think the market needs are so that there's configurability around the things where clients look different. Like it's, somebody who's optimizing for, pure ROAS and a run rate thing, that's very different from a new startup that's focused on CPA or even a subscription business. So we've got to have the right toggles and configurations in place to be able to kind of do that for the different use cases or how each company wants to see and optimize things. But once you kind of lay that out, then you've got this nice framework and you kind of really understand where not to build or code walls. Like, hey, we're just going to sheetrock over this, but we're going to leave a doorway because we think next year we're likely to build a new wing.
The things that I've observed about, Mike, about you and your team's building is like nothing then all at once, because you guys will work really hard in building like a strong generic foundation that can then quickly adapt to a lot of things. So it's like in our stack now, a lot of the beauty of what I've seen your team build is like there's all this chaos in the growth marketing world, all the differences in the channels and the algorithms powering them and the changes to the API and data availability. But like a very like core function of what we try to do for our own team and for our games that we support is just like make it dead simple, where you just log in and you can just like understand what's going on with your marketing, look at everything side by side for any of your games in your portfolio, compare iOS to Android, normalize for scan, normalize for users asked to not be tracked, forecast future revenue, yada yada. But point being, it's stuff that like on the surface level isn't as sexy to talk about as like AI, but like it's very basic business operational stuff that it's sort of like a lot of teams are trying to run before they walk. Like I talk to CEOs of publicly traded game companies that do not have a way to just log in and see which of their games is more profitable than the others and like how their marketing performance is going because of these very basic problems that like haven't been sexy problems to attack. But since here we have to live or die by whether like we do UA for games profitably, like we kind of have to attack these problems. So a bit of a rant, but that's one thing I've really appreciated is kind of building that solid foundation so you can actually like do your friggin' job like for us or for our clients, and someone's got to do that work.
The point that you're touching on, like in my experience, I've been at big, huge enterprise companies and been at lots of startups. And what I say is like, if you look at a lot of people, they just want to they start off in a startup mode of just trying to get something done. They don't care, like it can be running with mice and hamster wheels in the background, just get it running. Well, now what happens is they get some success and they're trapped. Now it's going to take them a massive amount to get there, or they're focusing on the big thing. And I think, you guys saw when we very first started here years and years ago, it's like, well, the first mantra, and like, I'm a very agilist kind of guy, right? I went from waterfall back in the day and like, I drink the innovative, incremental approach to things. And like, at the end of the day, it's like show work, right? It's about the output and constantly working to get to something, and then knowing that you're going to learn and grow on top of that, right? So to me, I think that's, a core thing in what we do. It is hard, but that is engineering. Like what I tell my team is like, I don't hire engineers. I want to hire product engineers, right? People who are focused on what that outcome is to our users and understanding what our users' pain is. And that's the problem we're solving. We're engineering how to solve that as best we can. And with the foreshadow, working with you guys to really deep dive and understand what the day-to-day pain is versus just being sort of order takers or focusing on I'm a technologist, right? Like, yes, we are, but that technology is a toolkit more than it is a job title, in my opinion.
Cool. So we talked a little bit about our theory and philosophy so far. What I really want to talk about is a little bit about what we can expect going forward. If we were to summarize what we worked on at Upptic from an analytics perspective this year, I think what we've seen is like building a really, really solid base of infrastructure and data, and then building a really flexible toolkit. Mike, I want to put you on blast a little bit. If you had an aspirational goal and 3 times the size of your team, what's the cool, exciting place you want to build for in 2025?
If I had 3 times the size of my team, I think we would be doing multiple things that I want to do aspirationally next year. Yeah. Well, I mean, look, the first thing is I've had this idea, I think I've talked to Warren about a long time. I think taking our buying model and putting it on steroids with automation is entirely doable with the right amount of time. Like I have this vision of a platform where you enter your budget, and based on the historical spends and both by region and by channel, we automatically make the recommendations of where that budget should go. and using our forecasting and other modeling layers actually forecast out and make a prediction based on those baselines and say, okay, here's your baseline for the month across all of these channels, across these campaigns in these regions, and then give you real-time day-to-day tracking on each one of those and daily alerts and automation on where adjustments should be made. Like, we have the tooling to do all of that. What we don't currently have is enough available time to like focus and get that out by comparison of some of our other things. And I think once you have that, it sits on top of the things that we're already working on, which is automatic and the ability to do automatic creative refresh. So be able to look at the actual performance and age of creatives within a specific campaign, region, campaign, you name it, and be able to say, hey, this really should be rotated out. And I've got this corpus of new assets sitting in our digital asset management tool that we already have that can now, that have been approved, and they can automatically be fed in based on the things. And we have all this capability, so it's about stitching those things together. So that's one. I do think, speaking of AI, I think there's lots of opportunity, especially around that kind of real-time pattern recognition and alerting and things to really look at some, in the grand scheme of things, more simplistic AI-type tools to help automate and alert some of those things or make some of those recommendations. But I think there's still a lot of exploration to do there. There's a lot of think and head time. Let's see. I think that in our new creator management project stuff, there's a whole suite of new functionality that is just waiting to be kind of polished and kind of brought to life out there, all the way to the point where I'm pretty positive that as the things progress, like that can be a self-serve ad hoc creator type network where it says like, hey, I'm a smaller team and I want to go spin up and get some UGC done, and I don't know the people in the market and I don't have these things, but I just want to go spin up this SaaS project or find creators and say, here's my budget, here's what I'm looking to do, here's my creative free, go, and either get assets that my team can then use directly in paid ads, or directly post it, have the creators post out into their social networks and treat it much more like an influencer campaign, which we already have the tracking and all that stuff around.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that too. We talked about this a little bit more in our Metatrends section, but like the worlds of disparate types of marketing are starting to merge with each other more. So we see PC and console getting interested in bringing more talent in that has, grew up in the performance marketing sector, trying to tap that kind of untapped pasture. And simultaneously, I talked to so many mobile teams that are like, yeah, we're kind of over traditional UA. We're skeptical it works anymore, but we really want to try to like scale up with influencers and working with creators. And there's no right or wrong. I think it's just, teams get very siloed in paint by numbers. So that's one thing I've been really excited that we're doing here, is just kind of like unifying methodologies between all these things, getting them all in the same hub. Like when we take a game to market, thinking about these are all valid channels. It's not like, oh, it's a mobile game, so like working with creators is off limits, or it's PC game, so
it's so
paid ads, right?
Yeah, like to our previous point around technology, there are so many pragmatic ways to do things and do them, like I'm going to use the word on the cheap, not in terms of the output, but in terms of the effort and resources to do it, right? There's all these low-hanging fruits with just a tiny little bit of effort and reminding someone to do a little bit of care and feeding. Like you just open up and unlock these markets that are sitting there that you're not doing anything with, right? And I think there's a lot of opportunity to that. And Warren, you touched on one of my favorite like kind of topics that we've dealt with, like especially like in our community growth product and social and stuff that I love doing, which is trying to like bridge that kind of open-ended, I'm just throwing stuff at the wall sometimes, into like a traditional, much more of a traditional view of kind of bringing order to chaos. Like, oh, we're going to allow you to create campaigns and sub-campaigns and then allow you to organize these things. And more importantly, track and measure them. Like, like at least as a starting point, but like the thought of actually tracking a budget for creators and trying to track that to the output of that content, at times it seems foreign to the people. And that's been very shocking. It's like, wait, I don't understand. Like, you should measure these things, even if it's just for your own gut check to go, did I feel like I got the outcome that made the time worth it, much less the capital?
Awesome. So for any of our competitors, there's a roadmap. Feel free to steal it if you dare. Cool. Well, that's basically it from my end. Warren, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, just as we go into next year, Mike, any big predictions on how you think, some of this year's themes around it? Like, a year in the future, like, what do you think is going to be like next year's meta theme that we're pontificating on a year from now, right?
Yeah, and I mean, certainly I think some form of AI is going to be there. I think that we will see a plethora of every tool known to man, like we already have, launching effectively the same type of API, or AI type thing in their environment, because that's where investment's coming from, and I think that's only going to get bigger. In terms of reality, I've been very keen on watching some of the AI-generated game content and levels and things like that. I think that potentially, is going to be something that we see. Really, once that gets kind of more mature, man, I think it opens up all sorts of stuff, like dynamically modified game levels based on what region a player's in, or cultural type of things that are inserted into the game to help better connections. I think there's a lot of opportunity there, especially, as it gets more embedded into the framework of some of the game engines and things. I think it's going to help creators develop more content. And so the question is, as we start to separate out the graphics and words and call to actions that we see specifically in our market, like in marketing, and be able to say, hey, I'm using the same graphic, but now I'm putting in this auto-generated AI structure to dynamically test ads or content or things like that. I think that's potentially something that we see in the next couple of years. So that will add more complexity to paid marketing, I think, which will be really cool, but it's another, it's like in cards on steroids, it's like this dynamic thing that's going to be in there. And I think that, you're also going to see that probably some realization of people pulling back from AI.
It doesn't magically solve all their problems.
Does not magically solve all their problems. I wish it did. It would be great if I could just, pay for an AI bot to spin up and put my feet up,
Pascal, that's close.
It's pretty close, actually. He's pretty close. So I'm going to tell you that number. So the other trend I think that we will see is especially with some of the, Web3 trends and Web 2.5 gaming, I do think that's going to continue. I think we're going to find, and it's going to work its way past, I don't know if it's next year or the year after, as we start to get through some of the regulation of crypto and things. I think that will continue to be a play. And I also think that we are going to get to the head of this cross-platform stuff. It's already even better between PC and console. I think it's, there are some instances where that's even merged into mobile. And I really do think we continue to inch closer and closer, although it's become less of a talk track these days. But man, it's the holy grail, both for me both as a gamer as well as a lot of the content, to be able to pick up where I left off. My continuity in the Mac ecosystem, right, is the most amazing thing. And getting to that for gaming and gaming communities, I think is still very much on the horizon.
No, you don't mind.
Started figuring that out. All of the MNPs realized that PC gaming existed and that they should probably go after that market. But then AI came in and distracted, I think, all other dev initiatives.
That was in mind, though. I think cross-platform, we've been talking about it forever, but I think just the reality of it is manifesting more and more. I would be very surprised. I think AI will sort of bust, not in the next year. It's either next year or the year after that. Not that it will go away, but just that the hype around it will sort of die down, and the valuations around it will die down. And I think from a gaming perspective, I think the big thing going forward is a cross-platform and ubiquity of gaming experiences. And it does pull into AI in that generative AI allows you to have much more flexible gaming experiences, which can be cross-platform.
But so does crypto to some degree, right? I know it sounds weird, but a lot of the gaming companies, they already have entitlement management systems. So you buy DLCs, you buy skins, you buy all these things. So that is ripe still for merger with some of the crypto NFT type of ownership things, or more rare content, and these marketplace systems. So I just like AI is, potentially helps in with the cross-platform stuff. Honestly, I think crypto plays into that, in some way as well, and especially so around the entitlement/ownership of assets.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, that's it. Marathon episode today. Thanks for joining us, Mike.
Of course. Have a great afternoon, guys.
Awesome. And thank you everyone for joining us for our year in review. Hopefully you enjoyed these segments with our different great minds here at Upptic. And if any of this is interesting to you and you need some help scaling your game, you can reach us through our website. As we say, we do all the hard work to scale games. We can plug in, support your team, and we build really cool technology that helps make all of that easier and more efficient. So if that is helpful to you, reach us through our website. It's upptic.com, upptic.com.
Talk soon.